Hey guys, so I noticed a lot of us were struggling with this assignment and it just, some of the answers were all over the place. So I already did 2 examples for you. It's already filled in your copy. So if you wanted to see how those 2 examples were done, go back into the original assignment, which is your ionic versus covalent chemical bonding worksheet. But I figured just to give you guys an additional review, I would just go through and do these with you. Because there were just a lot of issues I was catching, and I figured if I went through and explained each of them, that gives everyone a chance to go through and relearn it, and also the proper way to do this before your test next week. So again, the whole point of this is you're going to identify the element as a metal or non-metal, so we got to identify the elements in each. We have to identify the bond type, and then name the compound. Now, these do not have polyatomics on them, so please make sure if you need to review naming polyatomic ions, there was a review from last Friday that you can go watch. But let's just go ahead and do some of these together so I can clarify any misconceptions. Okay, so the 2 elements here are sodium, Na, and chlorine, Cl. So remember, an element will either have just one capital letter or a capital and a lowercase. So since we have 2 capitals here, 2 are lowercase, I know this is just 2 elements. So we're going to have sodium and we're going to have chlorine. Okay, so now I need to figure out, is sodium a metal or a non-metal? So I'm going to pull up my periodic table and I'm going to find sodium. Sodium is a metal, and we can tell because number 1, he's color-coded here as an alkali metal, but we also know our metals are from groups 1 all the way over to 13, right? And then also we know that these stair steps are the metalloids, but from 1 to 13. So aluminum is a metal. Boron's a metalloid, but aluminum is a metal. So we know sodium is in the left-hand side of the table, so he is a metal. So I'm going to go back into, so I'm just going to put metal. And then chlorine, we're going to do the same thing. Let's go to the periodic table. Chlorine is right here. It's in the green, right? So it's a reactive nonmetal. Reactive nonmetal just means that it's going to react, because remember, these are nonmetals, but they're noble gases, so they're stable. So chlorine is a nonmetal. So we know that chlorine is a nonmetal. Now, I know that if it's a bond between a metal and a nonmetal, that is ionic, because that's the definition of an ionic bond. If it's between a metal and a nonmetal, it's ionic, okay? Now we have to remember our naming rules for ionic bonds. With ionic bonds, we name the metal first. So our first one is sodium. Not spodium, sodium. Then we put our nonmetal, so our anion, and we change the ending to "ide." Okay, so it's IDE. Remember, if it's an 8 or an ite, it's polyatomic. We're not dealing with any polyatomics here, so they're all going to end in "ide." Okay, so yes, the element is chlorine. I was seeing a lot of you guys just putting the element name. That would be the name of the element, but remember, because it's naming, we have to change it to IDE instead of INE. So that's sodium chloride. Okay, now let's move on. Here we have phosphorus as our first, and iodine as our second element. Okay, so let me go to my table, and I'm going to find these 2 elements. Okay, phosphorus is right here. He's on the right-hand side. He's green, so he's a nonmetal. Iodine is also a nonmetal. Okay, so I'm going to go back, and I'm going to put them both, say that they're nonmetals. Now, because these are both nonmetals, I know this bond is going to be covalent. That's how we identify it, because a covalent bond is a sharing of bonds between 2 nonmetals. Okay, ionic, transfer of electrons between a metal and a nonmetal. Covalent, sharing of electrons between 2 nonmetals. So since my 2 elements are both nonmetals, I know this is a covalent bond. Okay, the naming rules are different for covalent bonds. Okay, for our ionics, we write the name of the metal and then the name of the nonmetal and change the ending to "ide." Okay, unless of course it's polyatomic, then you have to use your table. For our covalent bonds, remember we have to use the prefixes, okay? There's one phosphorus here, and remember if it's the first atom or the first element and there's only one, we don't have to add the mono. Mono only goes for the second element, okay? So since it's the first one, we just have to write his name, which is phosphorus. And then there are 3 iodine, okay? So we have to find the prefix that goes with 3, which is tri, okay? And then just like with our ionic bonds, we're going to change the ending of the second element. So this is iodine, so it would normally be just iodine, but because we're changing it, it's going to become iodide. So we're just going to change it to triiodide. So phosphorus triiodide. The tri lets us know there's a 3 there. And again, I don't have it pulled up right now. I apologize, but this table is in your notes from the naming covalent compounds. Actually, you know what? Let me just go back and pull it up for us since we're trying to review and I want to make sure you know where to get this. Okay, so it's in your Unit 3, Lesson 5. Oops, sorry, that was the video. I don't want to watch the video. I want the slides. So it's in Unit 3, Lesson 5. You just pull the slideshow up. It's right here in the second one. So here are your prefixes. So the 3 is tri, so we know we would use the tri as the prefix. Okay, that's where that came from. All right, let's do this one. Magnesium and bromine. Again, these are 2 elements because they're capital letters and they each have a lowercase. That just lets me know there's 2. There's 2 capital letters, so there's 2 elements here. So it's not polyatomic. Let's take a look at our table and find these 2. Magnesium, right here. Group 2, he's a metal. So magnesium is a metal. Bromine, Br, right here, he's green, he's on the right-hand side of the table, he is a nonmetal, okay? So metal, nonmetal. Guys, remember on periodic table, or on P table, it tells you it's a nonmetal. Magnesium, it's yellow, it's a metal, okay? So metal and a nonmetal. All right, so here we have a bond between a metal and a nonmetal. The electrons are going to be transferred. It's ionic. Now, we have to do our ionic bonding names, okay? So we're going to have the name of the metal first, which is magnesium, and then the name of the nonmetal or the anion second, which is bromine. But remember that INE has to be changed to IDE, so it's magnesium bromide. Here is where I saw a lot of mistakes, okay? I was seeing a lot of students say that this was magnesium 2 bromide. That is not correct, okay? It's not magnesium 2 bromide. So it seems like we're a little bit confused about when we put the Roman numerals. The Roman numerals are only for transition metals, okay? The transition metals are in group 3 through 12. The pink metal. Do you guys see where the pink says transition metal? Those are the transition metals. So if the metal in the ionic bond, so if the first element is one of these pink metals, yes, you do need to put the charge of the metal in parentheses. That is correct if it's a transition metal. The only one that was on here was copper. Okay, I saw a lot of you guys putting Roman numerals for like magnesium and aluminum. Those are not transition metals. And if it's not a transition metal, it does not need those Roman numerals. Okay, so if your metal is from group 1, group 2, or group 13, you do not need the Roman numerals, okay? You don't need to tell us a charge. It only gets the Roman numerals again if it's one of these pink metals. So if it's pink from P table, yes. If it's in the middle, it gets a Roman numeral, but if not, you leave it alone. So here, magnesium is in group 2. He's not a transition metal, therefore he does not get that, okay? Here's another thing. This example is the last one I'll do on this video, and then I'll finish them up in a second video. Again, we have calcium and oxygen, okay? Calcium is a metal. I'll show you, prove it to you. Calcium's in group 2, he's a metal. He's not a transition metal, so we don't need the Roman numerals. And oxygen, he's green, he's a non-metal, okay? So, here we have another ionic bond, so electrons are transferred between a metal and a non-metal. And this would be calcium, because we write the name of our metal first, and then our anion, which is oxygen. But remember, some of you guys were just writing, oh, it's oxygen. No, you change it to IDE, so oxide. Okay, so it's calcium oxide. This is one of those where I know if you Googled, okay? Because based on what we know, the way you guys should name this is calcium oxide. If you go to Google and you type in CaO, sorry, I always want to type in 0 for some reason. Let me type in formula. It tells you, what were you guys getting? This is one that was, I was getting weird answers on it, but that does give you the right answer. It is calcium oxide. Oh, this is what it was. Some of you guys were writing oxocalcium. Y'all, I know that you know, or you don't know, that that is oxocalcium, okay? This is showing me you guys are Googling this stuff. Do not Google it, okay? You guys are running into issues, and at this point, I've warned you multiple times, and if I notice it, you're gonna have to take zeros on your assignments, okay? So do not write oxocalcium. It should be calcium oxide, okay? So calcium oxide, not oxocalcium, because that's what I was seeing. I knew there was something weird about that one. Okay, so I'm gonna finish up the last ones in another video, but definitely if you're still struggling with this, if you're not sure, go back and review those 2 lessons, naming ions, naming covalent compounds. And if you're still not sure by the end of the next video, please come to my office hours or reach out to me because I would love to help you through it.